Hello, everyone. Hola a todos. How are you? How's everyone going? Good? Woo! We're at the National Book Festival. Yay! I didn't hear any noise from you. Woo! Good. Yay! I love that. I'm really excited and so honored to be with both of you. And I love your books. I love both Manny, I call her Manita, and and Shakira, which I just learned how to pronounce because I'm Mexican, so I pronounce things differently. And I've been calling her Charquita, and it was like, well, that sounds cute too, but it's Shakira. So if I sometimes pronounce it differently, you know why. And I love both of your books, and you have both like amazing, strong characters, 12-year-olds fighting for, for the role and having to have this voice. So, if some of you haven't read their book yet, so why don't Anna and Sherry start telling us a little bit about what is your book about, and kind of reading a short paragraph about it, so everyone can go and run and buy their book after.
Awesome. Should I start? Okay. So, oh wow. I'm like projecting. So my book, Manny Semilla Finds Her Quetzal Voice, it's about 12-year-old Manny, who is really desperate to thwart her mom's plan of taking her to Guatemala by her 13th birthday. But then one day she finds these secret letters hidden between her mom and this disappeared feminist journalist aunt, Tia Beatriz, who wrote during the 1990s, during the Civil War in Guatemala, and she wrote about the violence against women that was happening. So when she finds these letters, she begins to connect with her history in Guatemala, and it serves as a blueprint to help her, go from this like quiet bystander to this budding activist that stands up against what she sees as this culture of harassment going on in her own U.S. middle school. So I'll read. It was hard to find a paragraph. I'm going to read two, but read it fast so it seems like one. So it's in the beginning, but not the very beginning. But you can't tell me any of this, because I'm 12, and life sucks when you're 12. You're not a little kid, but you're also not an adult. And all the grown-ups in your life talk about your body the minute it starts getting a shape. And what sucks even more than being a half Chinese, Filipino American, half Guatemalan who can't speak any ancestral language well, when almost every other girl in school has already gotten her period except for you and your two besties, Kai and Connie, and everybody's looking at you like you're still some little girl with no real life knowledge to go with those big, stupid, purple framed glasses. Glasses that have been bigger than my face ever since I was 8 and first started wearing them, because I'm myopic, which is a fancy way of saying things look blurry in the distance. Sometimes I wish a big, ugly meteor would come and destroy my glasses so I could get new ones, like those clear framed ones, the kind that would make me look like a grown woman, like a writer, but not gonna happen, because mommy picked my glasses, on rebaja, of course, because paying full price is for rich folks and pendejos, and we are neither. I mean, I know she's trying. Mommy picked the color too after her favorite bird, the quetzal, which is the national bird of Guatemala. But I don't wanna go up there. Abuelita says that I need to find my quetzal voice, except I don't really know what that means. Manuela, be a quetzal like your tia Beatriz, she says on the days she has her memory, but also on the days she doesn't. What she means is be like her other daughter, mommy's sister, apparently a real quetzal of a woman who got on a bus one day in Guatemala and never came home. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My book, Shark Teeth, is about a girl named Sharkita, who is also 12. Sharkita, and it starts at a point where Sharkita and her brother and sister have just been returned to their mother after spending the summer in foster care. And Mama promises that this time things are going to be different. She's got her act together. She's going to do all these great things for the kids. And Sharkita wants to believe so bad, but she knows that in the past she has been left in charge. One's her little brother who is neurodivergent, her little sister who is a handful, and her being only a few years older than them. But she is desperate to keep the family together. So desperate, in fact, that after they're reunited, she struggles with her sleep paralysis and other stress disorders, including panic attacks, that she has kept secret because Mama told her if she tells anybody, they will think that she is crazy and they'll take her away. So that is what the book is about. And I started this book, when I started writing this book, it just flowed out like a poem. So I'm going to just start right at the first page. We stumbled over Mama's best memories, like tripping on old bones as we ran backward through time. All Mama's best memories lived in the Bruckner orange groves where her family worked, where her father worked as a manager once upon a time. Right over there, that's where Daddy let me drive a tractor for the first time. I wasn't but this high, Mama said, balancing her palm even with her waist, parallel to the dusty ground. She let out a burst of laughter, as bright, so bright it painted everything with joy. Never mind that the last time she pointed out the sacred site of her maiden tractor voyage, it was nowhere near where she stood that morning. Who needs facts, right? She was riding a vibe.
Thank you so much, Sherry. And Anna, thank you so much for reading about it. I love what you say about how it came to you as a poem. And I would love to know more about the inspiration behind these two novels. And how did you create Manny and Sharkita? You want to start us off, Sherry?
Well, it's a two-pronged answer. I'll be as brief as possible. The idea really started years and years before I started writing it. My kids went to a summer camp, you know, one of those pricey little, they're supposed to be learning judo or karate, and really all they're learning is how to sneak snacks and tell dirty jokes that they learn, because, you know, it's always the other kids. My kids didn't know that stuff before they went. So one day, one Friday, every Friday was movie day, and one Friday they took them to a movie theater where kids from other camps were also at the theater. My kids came home. They were, you know, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, and they came home complaining that these children, some of these children were smelly and dirty, and they were just smelly kids. Like, why would you even leave the house like that? And I'm like, first of all, have you smelled your room? You must be kidding. But it sparked in me the notion, as I tried to explain to them, that not everybody's home life was like ours. Not everybody had a washer and dryer. Not everybody has money for soap. Not everybody even allows their kids to take multiple showers or baths or clothes washings because they're afraid of running up this bill or that. And those kids stood there and looked at me like this. Can I have a snack? I didn't get far. So jump ahead years later when they're in high school, and my two daughters were in a choir, and the choir has to be rated every year. Some of you might have choirs and know this. In Florida, the kids have to be rated, the choir has to be rated. It's a big deal. Mom, won't you come? Mom, won't you come? I'd love to. I'd love to spend 5 hours in a dark auditorium while all the choirs from all the county. It's not just like I have to go hear mine. No, their kids are going to be singing everywhere. But I was glad they did, because my bored mind was electrified by watching. There was something about the music and listening. And in the dark, I pulled out my phone and I pulled up the Notes app, and I began to write the poem that led to the opening of this book. So I'm sorry, I hope I didn't go too long. That was.
That was great.
What about you, Anna? Tell us everything. Not everything, but.
Yeah. So for me, it was in 2021, so not too long ago, but I had signed up for this year-long short story writing class because I just was trying to find a way to get back into writing. I had written a lot when I was younger. When I was in 5th grade, I had written this line that said, "I entered the clear blue opening shadows of the earth's territory." And I thought that was so good. And nobody could have told me otherwise. And to this day, I don't even know what that means, but it stuck in my head. It's not very good, but that was the moment I knew I wanted to be a writer. But I didn't really write for I took a couple decades, and I just wasn't writing, so I wanted to get back into it. And it was also around the time when I'm also a middle school teacher, and shout out to my teacher friends in the audience. Woo, teachers! And so I had just switched to teaching English language development, that's formerly ESOL. So most of my students were newly arrived into the country. So it was their first week, first month, first year in the country, and all of my students were from Central American countries. And I knew that many of them had never stepped foot in the library. So part of the first week activity was to take them on a field trip to the library, down the steps to the right. And the first thing they did as soon as they walked in was run and attack the beanbag chairs, and scream at the top of their lungs, because the library is such a fun, beautiful, comfy, welcoming place. So, we did have to. And as a new ELD teacher, I was like, oh, I should have gone over the rules first. But, they had a wonderful, wonderful time. But one of my students, a 12-year-old boy from El Salvador, said he was in the graphic novel section and fiction, and he said, where are the books about Central America? And so I had the media specialist pull, all these atlases, country profiles, and he's like, no, but where are the books? And I realized what he was trying to say, where are the stories about Central American kids? And it made me realize that growing up, I couldn't name any, and right at that moment, I couldn't name any. So of course I went home, I made a list. The list was small. Luckily, it's growing. There's some really great books with Central American representation, but still, it just made me realize what a need there is for that, not just at my school, but I think in all throughout this country. And so it just made me think about my own experience growing up, mostly here, but with Central American identity, and how do we, how do you identify with a place where you don't live, which is something that my students were actively going through much, in a much newer sense than I was. So it just clicked, right at that moment. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And honestly, I will be a totally different person if I've had read these books when I was 12 or 13 or 11 or 10, right? Because it's I still don't know how to do these things, or finding your voice. It took me well into my 20s to find my voice, but that's another story. But tell us about that. Why was it important for you that both of your characters are finding their voices? Why was it important that you have to find your voice in both of your novels? You want to start us off, Anna?
Sure. So for me, I thought about my own experience as a middle school student where, I think, and especially today, a lot of middle schoolers, they're dealing with so much, they see so much, and they're just trying to kind of navigate all these really heavy things going on. And so I wanted to really create a character that doesn't always get it right. So it's kind of her coming into activism story. And there's really that sense of urgency, I think, in middle school today, with kids today, that, what kind of activist are you? How are you showing up? How are you being an activist? And I think that's a lot of pressure. It's a really beautiful thing, but I think it's also a lot of pressure. And so I wanted to, so I created this character that, throughout the book, she gets it wrong so many times until she gets it right, but meanwhile, she's also being informed, she's looking at it from this narrow lens of like her school, her life, her community. But then when she finds these letters and she learns about feminism and activism in Guatemala, it's the thing that sparks her interest in her heritage. But then also it's like this thread, you know, she starts to make this connection between, you know, extremes, but still something that's part of the same continuum, you know, like violence against a specific population, but then also how do cultures of violence form in schools. And I also wrote this right after the pandemic, when schools were coming back, when I think a lot of schools were really battling with this increase in violence in schools and harassment. And I think a lot of schools really didn't know how to deal with it. They were trying to figure it out. So I really wanted to capture, you know, just to capture that moment. So.
What about you, Sherry? Tell us.
Well, all of my books, the funny ones, the younger ones, they're all about identity. You call it voice, finding your voice. I call it identity. We're all searching for the best version of ourselves, or we are struggling against the darkest versions of ourselves. And so I write stories that say, a lot of us are both at once, and it's just which one you show up to, which one you're going to put forward that day. And a lot of being a middle school kids and finding your voice is about how to make your identity hold fast even when other people are trying to impose identities upon you. Fast girl, the fat girl, the smart kid, the dumb boy, you know, everybody knows what you are. But what are they? What do you think of you? Where do you see yourself? So that's how I approach my stories, is a lot of, you know, a lot of the books that I've written, the stories that I tell, they're just about identity. And whether the character starts out with a really strong sense of identity and then finds that even though they think they're great, you can be better. You know, you may not be as great as you think. And then for characters like Sharkita, who, that poor child is just a mass of confusion, she learns that there is a better side to her, and she has a right to claim it, you know, so.
Yeah, and I cried a lot with Sharkita. I suffer a lot, but I must confess that I read your Wednesday and Woof books. Yeah, you didn't know that, but I did.
Chapter books, yeah.
Yeah,
They're
and
so
I love them because I laugh with those, and I laugh with Sharkita, but I also cry a lot.
Yeah. Well, you should have read Sharkita first, and then those books.
And then Wednesday and Woof, yeah. So I was waiting for the book to arrive. So like, let's read Wednesday and Woof. Everyone, if you have questions, I have probably a couple more questions, but start thinking about your questions for Anna and for Sherry, because you're gonna have time to ask. So start thinking about, and maybe like, I think there's some mics over there, right? Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, everyone started? I see one person that is already like lining into her face, I see Lorena. But, well, I wanted to ask another question before audience questions, and it's about these complicated relationship between mothers and daughters. It was so layered in both of your books. I was really impressed about the different and complicated relationships that you're writing. It's not something like really easy to do, right? So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, when I wrote the conflict scenes with Mama and Sharkita, the one thing you need to know is there was a lot of Merlot involved. A lot. And I thought, my God, why didn't I have this when I was 12? Kids, don't try to drink the Merlot. That's not an endorsement.
Kids, Merlot is wine, just in case. Yes.
Yeah. Don't drink the Merlot.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Bad sherry, bad author. but they were triggering. Writing those scenes, I would write for a while, and then, sometimes I would call my sister, we'd FaceTime, and I said, this is what happened to Sharkita, because I talk about them like they're kids in the house. This is what happened to Sharkita today, and then Mama did this, and she was like, ooh, I know, because it brings up whatever you have with your mom, you use that in the story. And even though my mother's been dead for 30 years, there were times that I was writing that book where she was right back there, and I was just shrinking down like, oh, that was just my phone. So yes, writing those difficult relationships, you draw on your own emotions, you put your feet on the floor, you uncork the wine, and you get to it. That was me.
Okay, wine. Okay, muy bien. What about you, Ana?
So for me, just talking about relationships with moms and parents, I did want to shout out my parents are right here in the first row.
She won't say much.
Yeah. So I'll censor what I say. Just kidding. Yeah. But for me, I really wanted to explore what, my character, Manny, how she thinks about feminism and how that is those conversations about what is feminism, but what is feminism to a US-born girl, a 12-year-old girl, and what is feminism to some, the older generation, who had lived through Civil War and immigration and, and immigrated to a new country. And so at first in the book, she sees her mom as like the anti-feminist, and simply because things like the mom will say like, you can't go to school wearing that, I'm not saying that happened, that might have happened a few times.
We're gonna interview your mom after this.
I know,
so
it's nice, the best thing about being an adult, you can wear what you want, but so in the book, that's just she sees her heritage, her culture, that relationship just on the surface as stereotypes, like, oh, my mom said this, or like she's so anti-feminist, but then of course through these letters she actually discovers that her mom was an activist, and then had to flee the country. And so I really wanted to explore, a girl whose definitions of feminism changes and matures and evolves.
So, a la mamá?
Yeah.
Just kidding. Ready for questions? I know Lorena wants to ask a question. She's gonna run, right?
This is just my size. I'm always the shorty. Okay, Anna, thank you so much for that book. My daughter loved it so much. She's 9.
Thank you. Oh, thank
She's 9,
you.
and she identified with the Mean Boys, and it was our first conversation that we had about a period.
Yeah.
So that was a great opening to that. So my question for you is from her. She couldn't make it today, and she wants to know if those letters are real.
So, good question. I wish they were. They're not real for me personally, but they were inspired by a realization I had as I got older, when I realized that almost everyone I know in Guatemala knows someone who has disappeared, and so that realization was what inspired the letters, and then just reading about different journalists who had been persecuted, and disappeared. So it was inspired by a lot of those women journalists. And so the letters themselves are not, but I love that question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really believe they were true because they were so convincing. Yeah, it's
thank
okay.
you.
We're gonna get over it. Yeah. Anyone else has another question? If not, I have more. No? No one is raising their hand. Oh, you can come to the mic, or...
I don't really know how to articulate this into words, but how do y'all come up with character personalities and write on paper how the characters interact with each other? Because that's something I've struggled with.
Oh my God, that's deep.
Yeah. That's a great question.
You get an idea for a character, you get an idea for a story a lot of times. Like right now, I have an idea for a really cool story, but I haven't found the right character to put in it because of the personalities. You start out and you say, oh, you know, I need this character to be a crafter, and I need her to be this. But in order to make a book, it has to be so much more. One of the things that I do, especially when I'm doing a friendship book, I will pull up astrology for kids, and I will look at the traits of the different astrological signs and what it says about who interacts well and who doesn't interact well. A lot of times I don't mention the astrology in the book, but it gives me a starting point. Oh, I didn't think about this if I have this friend. I didn't think about this if I made this enemy. And that's just one tool that I have. Sometimes if I'm writing about a particular thing, someone who wants to do a particular thing, I try to go do it, or I try to go see it, or I try to research it, because in doing that, in doing the research, your vocabulary for their emotional self, their inner life will build. You know, it's almost impossible to get that layering just by like saying, oh, I'm going to write this story, and this character is this, and she's going to be this tall. I mean, it's very impossible to do. So that would be my suggestion.
So for me, I love that question.
Yeah,
it's such a good
great
craft question. For me, it changes by project. And that's what I'm realizing, because I've only written one book, it's my debut, I'm kind of figuring that out. Like, how do you what do you start with? The voice, the character, the plot? So for this book, it's the voice that came with me first, and it was literally just a line. And it was for this short story, when I thought I wanted it to be a short story. And an adult short story, actually, until the instructor said, you write for young adult, middle grade. And I was like, what? No, and then anyways, I'm forever thankful for her. But so what I did as a craft activity was I started to write almost like a diary or a journal just about my day, my teaching day, but through the voice of this character I wanted to create. And that was just really good writing practice. I created a playlist which for some reason had Pat Benatar all over it, even though different decades.
Pat Benatar is never a bad choice.
Exact, thank you. Yes, for some reason it just fit. And so that just doing things like that allow you to get into the mind of someone else, the world of someone else, that was really helpful. Yeah, and fun as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you for that question.
That was a great question.
Yeah, that was a great question. And I think, we're running out of time. Just a really quick question. Yeah.
So I want to shift the focus to secondary characters. When you write secondary characters, tropes have their place, but sometimes secondary characters evolve in ways that you didn't expect. Could you each speak to a secondary character that evolved from what they were at the start of your project and then what they looked like at the end, and how that surprised you as an author? Thank you.
All right, real quick. My last book, Lotus Bloom and the Afro Revolution, Lotus is the main character, and she's very hippy-dippy, and her best friend is named Rebel, and that tells you what you need to know. Initially, she was a placeholder, but by the end of the book, I was thinking the follow-up, Rebel might have her own book. She grew in volume, in voice, not always in a good way, but not always in a positive way, but still, she grew and made the whole story stronger.
Yeah, I love that question as well. For me, it's actually both the parents in the book. At first they weren't very present, in the first draft. They were just they were just there. They didn't have their own humanity or evolution or really nuance or anything. And then through the editing process, I really got to hone in on each of them, because they tell you every character, no matter how small, has their own world and full range of humanity, whether it makes it onto the page or not. And so I loved how both of those characters evolved, because the dad's character, it's through he starts to open up to her about his own experience being like a, what you call third culture kid, like having, heritage in so many different places. And that kind of helps her really begin some healing conversations with her mom. And then the character of the mom, she's always kind of like onto her, being negative, but then there's all these moments of like connection. And in the first draft, I didn't have those moments of connection. And so just through that, I was just able to make them like, give them the fullness and richness they deserved. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I am really grateful that this new generation is getting more diverse stories like yours. I'm so proud of you, so proud of everyone, and talking about difficult things. And I want to thank everyone here. Hopefully we convince you to go and buy the books, right? And go and run. I'm just kidding now. 4:15. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to everyone here. And yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, we are at the National Book Festival, everyone. Woo!